Good afternoon, Maastricht. Did I say that right? How about some applause? Did I say that right? Number one, I'm not your typical American. Can I have some applause? I don't even know what that means, and it always gets applause. So I want to ask you some questions first, just to get a sense of who you are. Nobody's done that yet. I want to do that. And I'm not going to ask you individually. I won't say to you, who are you? See, that's what stand-up comedians do. I want to be a teacher. So I want to get a sense. How many of you, guys, if you could put up the house lights just a little bit, how many of you are healthcare professionals, doctors, nurses, something like that? Wow. How many of you put your hands down, how many of you are interested in medical education? Okay. If you don't have your hand up, you can leave. Oh, thank God. All right. That's important to me. It's very important to me. So when they asked me to come talk to you, I said, well, what should I do? And what I did was I put together a story. And they took my story apart. They said, you have 16 minutes. I sent in 32 slides. How many of you have had that experience? Right. Okay. So they said, take your slides out. Every slide that I took out was funny. Everyone. Every slide that remains, boring, terrible, horrible, awful. So I apologize. But let's go through a story. It's a story in two parts, and I hope you enjoy the story. I call the story Turning Medical Education Upside Down, that's part one, and Inside Out, that's part two. Anybody have any idea why I did that? Somebody's laughing. That wasn't a joke. Are you laughing because I was able to turn my words upside down? There's a website. You just search it out. Here's the prologue. They don't know what they don't know. Think about it for a second. Medical students entering medical school have no idea what they're about to learn. They know what the courses are going to be, but they don't know what's inside it, right? How about your practicing physician? Think of it. Do you think your practicing physician knows everything they could possibly need to know to do their job? That was a question. Thank you. That was an answer. I love this. It translates to Dutch very well. Thank you. So this is the prologue. It's sort of the beginning of both parts of the story. Chapter 1 is a numbers game. Let's think about this. 4 plus 4 plus 40. That's an equation, right? 4, and I'm thinking of it from an American perspective. So if you're not from America, and most of you aren't, and I'm glad that you aren't, make the numbers fit your system. But 4 is the number of years that a medical student goes to medical school after university. 4, the second 4, is a representative number of how many years they train after graduating from medical school. And then 40 years is the average number of years they practice after they don't have to take any other required classes at all. Holy shit. Right? Hey, Lucian, am I allowed to curse? Don't answer that. Okay. Think about that. Chapter 2. Another equation. 2 plus 2 equals 4. This is how most medical schools do it. 2 years, we're going to teach you about the science. Ooh. Let's cut a body apart. Yay. Don't eat chicken over the body. You'll mix up the pieces. Ooh, that's bad, right? Let's learn biochemistry, pharmacology, all this cool stuff. Then we'll let you touch a patient. That's the second 2. That's a mistake. That's a mistake. Let patients help, right? I heard that from backstage. Somebody said that a couple times. I believe it, but we got to turn it upside down. Hope that didn't make any of you nauseous. I apologize, right? I didn't test that out with a test audience. So we have to turn it upside down. We've got to involve the patient from day 1 in medical school. Day 1. Who agrees? For those of you at home, there were hands raised, claps, and just stunned faces. What was missing? Look at this picture. What's missing from this picture? They're going to stick a tube in nothing. Now, if I'm the patient, I'm glad, right? Because there's nothing to do. And look how happy they are. They're looking at the confidence monitor to see if they got it in the right hole. They don't even realize they don't have a patient. That's a problem. Integrate patients into all 4 years of medical school. This is, don't try to read it. This is the first 2 years of a brand new medical school opening in Long Island, New York. That's where I live. Great place. Thank you. One clap. Okay. It's called, and this is a mouthful, the Hofstra North Shore Long Island Jewish Medical School. Everybody, no. Okay. Instead of breaking it up into 4 years, it's the first 100 weeks and the second 100 weeks. The two things I want to point out to you about this, at the very top, it's from the person to the professional. Challenges, privileges, and responsibilities. They're being taught to be EMTs. They're going on the back of ambulances. They're learning how to treat patients even before they get to the hospital. Innovative. There's that innovation word again. And all along the bottom in purple, it says patient, physician, and society. Patient-centered care, population health. That's medical education as it's supposed to start. Do you agree? Yes. Good. Thank you. A scream from the back. I think that was John. Okay. That's part one of the story. Part two. And this is good. I'm a little ahead of schedule, so I get to dance like Team Schmetta. I'm going to, bounce on one arm if you all laugh the rest of the time. I can... You already got your standing ovation. Shut up. That was Tim. Don't clap for him ever again. Involve the patient throughout. So let's think about this. Continuing medical education, continuing professional development, CPD, CME. That's where I live. That's what I do, right? This is the most important part of a practicing physician's educational continuum. And it's unstructured. They're left on their own to find courses somewhere that will teach them something that's maybe relevant to what they do. The courses are developed quite often by an expert. We all know experts. I'm an expert. Experts who have an opinion. One person's opinion, who say, this is what all the practicing physicians need to know on this topic. Okay. What's wrong with that? Everything. That was Tim's wife. She can stay. But we have to turn things inside out because there's no shortage of courses. Diabetes has a lot of mention today. Maintaining tight glycemic control in type 2 diabetes, or how to prescribe the right drug to treat your diabetes. Most physicians know what to prescribe, yet most of their patients don't get the results that they expect. Why? Because the education didn't focus on what the needs were beyond just what to prescribe. Let's think about this. Let's focus on those final 40. Think about, do these physicians need or know what they need to know? And if they don't, how can people like me and you and patients help them learn what they need to know? Now let's think about this. I picked If Your Doctor Was 45. Can anybody guess why I picked If Your Doctor Was 45? Quiet in the front row. No, not because my doctor is 45, because I'm 45. I know, I don't look it. And by the way, my good friend, e-patient Dave, who's about to get a mention in here, was wrong about the best presenters having long, wavy hair. I would argue that to the end. Thank you, Dave. Thank you. But if your doctor was 45 and he graduated medical school about the time he should have, this was his textbook of medicine, okay? And the reason I put it up on eBay, and this is the book that I had, look how much they were asking for it. 5 cents. And look how many bids it got before the auction closed. A 0. Why? Because that book was good, but it ain't good no more. So how do we fill the gap? Well, we can buy the new version for $179. I don't work for the company that sells the book, and I don't recommend buying the book. Why? Because look at this, free online medical textbooks. I love the internet. Or I can go find Walter's online courses if I hack into your university system, which, people from Brooklyn have been known to do, right? Brooklyn's a Dutch word, folks. Just remember, Brooklyn. But it's lifelong learning. You can't get lifelong learning from a book. You can't. You can't get lifelong learning from 50 books. You need to have collaborative education. You need to think about how patients are cared for. You need to think about a timeline continuum of the management of these patients, I think. What do I mean by that? Well, first things first. Who's this? Charlie Brown. Charlie Brown went to Lucy, the psychiatrist. Okay? Lucy did not take enough CME. Why did Lucy not take enough CME? Because she put up a barrier. She didn't involve the patient. She said, put your 5 cents in the jar and let me make you feel like crap. Some doctors do that, don't they? For those of you at home, there were nods. Nobody was brave enough to say yes. What's still missing in CME? Hello? Does this look familiar? If now you're a real licensed official doctor and you're allowed to work on real patients, that's like you, Dave, and everybody else in this room, why don't we use patients to help you learn how to do that? Ooh, revolutionary or evolutionary? I'll leave you to decide. But the times, they're changing. Look at this. There you go, Dave. There's your name up on the screen. What did we do? Well, I was doing education about renal cell carcinoma, and I'm a social media geek. I met Dave through Twitter. Not the same way he met his wife. Don't think that. Don't worry. I know. You're secure, I'm secure. It's good. No big deal. But I said to Dave, I have an idea. He goes, you always have an idea. I said, would you like to talk to doctors in the setting of medical education? If you look at the other talks, it's classifying patient risk status, the promise of genetic molecular arrays and biological markers. It's like, oh my God, right? Then I said, I want you to tell them your story, but not the way you always tell it, not the way you tell it here, the way we want them to understand the role of the patient. You can't just drop it on them in a and they're not willing. They don't want it. And he said, you're right. And we worked together, and it took a little back and forth, and we wowed them. We didn't wow them. You wowed them. You told them what your job was as a patient. And I thank you for that. It was well received, it was well evaluated, and I was proud to have Dave be a part of that. And we're going to do more of it. How do you develop? In the last 3 minutes, I'm going to give you the lifelong lessons of how you do this, okay? Start by asking questions. I started by asking questions. I wanted to understand who you were and what your needs would be. So I asked questions. We as medical educators have to do that. And we have to ask the patients what would help in your care. And then we have to do, this is a triple word score in Scrabble, multi-inter-transdisciplinary and collaborative education. Bring the care team together. If a patient is taken care of by a medical oncologist, a surgical oncologist, a radiation oncologist, pathologist, pharmacist, and nurse, teach them that way. Don't teach them separately, teach them together so they treat the patient together. If a patient with chest pains is seen in the emergency room, sent to the interventional cardiology lab, and sent home to a cardiologist, teach them together, not separately. Tell them how to manage that patient, not the disease. Use simulation. Don't just bring a mannequin in, but simulate clinical practice. Have a virtual practice. Have a virtual patient. Use them. Think of time course management. That patient in the emergency room in the next 24 hours will go through 3 or 4 specialists and nurses and pharmacists. Teach based on that timeline. Say they start here, they go here, they finish there. There's a lot of data that say the biggest mistakes are made because of problems with transitions. Address the problems of transitions and teach at the point of care. In the 1970s and 80s, they said, don't open a book in front of a patient. Bullshit. That's the second time I said it, isn't it? I'm going to get thrown off after the third. That's wrong. Take your resources out, consult it, and show the patient. Let them understand why you're doing what you're doing, and show them that there's a valid reason for it. And if they bring information, incorporate it and tell them what's right and what's wrong. And if you don't know, don't be ashamed to look for it. And measure to treasure. If we're teaching physicians, measure how much change there was in competence, in performance, and in patient outcomes, and ask the patients how well it went. There's all these great CME activities out there for performance improvement and virtual learning and always at hand and little pictures and stuff. So what? Let's make sure the trends continue. Teach about patients, let the patients help, and let's turn medical education upside down and inside out. Remember, they still don't know what they don't know, but as medical educators, we can help them figure out and learn from it. The moral of the story was, we are all patients. This story was about us. Thank you.